Hello again and welcome back. My name's Annie and this is my creative detour. Today I'm going to be playing in my packaging journal. Now I made this journal for Scraptember, but I'm going to keep using it over the next few months until it's full. And I'm going to be doing things in it that are relating to reusing or upcycling packaging, because it is called my packaging journal after all. As the name says, I made it out of packaging, and I've done some projects in it through Scraptember that relate to packaging. So I will link the playlist to Scraptember down below, but there will be a playlist that's relevant just to my packaging journal. So let's chat about what I'm going to be doing today. I have pulled out quite a bit of packaging and I'm going to be making page clusters. So doing a bit of a story with a mixture of packaging and then some printables or some ephemera that I've found. And I'm going to be putting together two different stories. So let's pull out the supplies and I'll show you the first one that we're going to work on. So here we go. On our tray we have some ephemera, and I've pulled out a photo of a gentleman out of Collage soup, and it's out of the botanical one. Done a little bit of prep, but not everything. We'll put the page together on camera. So you can see that I've stamped a few things and prepped a few things, but here's our packaging. So I have pulled a page out of the journal, and it's a brown paper page, and it's made out of brown paper packaging and then some other lesser quality brown paper. And then I have also got some white deli paper, so the paper that you get from the delicatessen when they wrap up your meat. And then I've also put some honeycomb packaging onto it and glued it on, so it's got some lovely texture. I have some ribbed packaging, and then I have some bits and pieces of different things. Now I'm running with the story that this gentleman is an undercover agent of some sort. I don't want to call him a spy, but let's call him an agent. A little bit like Get Smart. I used to love Get Smart when I was growing up. Maybe a little bit more professional than Get Smart. And I have some bits and pieces to construct a story on the cluster, and then the cluster can stick onto the page when it's all made. Let's just pop that page there and we'll just work on this bit. Now I also have a little bit of just netting, some mesh of some sort, and I have a blank piece of invoice, and then I've stamped his name. It says George Hathbert, and I got that from Tony from Crafty by Tony, and it is her identification card stamp. So we're going to use that, and I've dated it the 12th of December 1973. It just looked like to me that it might have been in the 70s, and all the spy things were pretty big. So let's put this together. I am just going to stick this stamp on, and then I want to stamp something on here. And this is an American stamp, I think. Some of you might know who that gentleman is. I'm not sure who he is, but some of you may know. Let me get my stronger glasses on. Switch my glasses over and see if I can see what it says. Oh, I might need to put on two pairs of glasses. Do any of you do that? Ah, it's Benjamin Franklin. I'm not sure how old that stamp is, but there we go. That's who the stamp is of. So we'll stick that on. That stamp came from my great aunt. Now, some of you will have already heard about her and watched some videos that I have of her. And I've just put out a stamp that says important. Now, that important stamp was from a stamp set from Poppy Crafts, and the stamp set number is 611, and I got that from Crafting Online here in Australia. Now let's stick this on. We'll lay it out first. I think that I've got that there. We possibly can glue him onto here so we can get that organised. He looked a little bit like a secret agent or some sort of person that it was all about the business, all about work. I think I'm going to put this on here. All right, let's glue a few things on. So I'm going to just do a few different compositions over the next few months and pop them into my packaging journal so that you can see me using some of the packaging that I've got. Now that's going to take a little bit of time to stick, but that's okay. And this is a digital from Margaret from Seven Plaza. I think it is from the Gentleman Freebie, possibly. Let's put our mesh down first. I'll pop some double-sided tape on. It will just hold it in place until the glue bites. I just wanted a little bit of texture on there. Not that there isn't a lot of texture already with the packaging, but I just wanted a little bit of texture. Okay, that will work. That'll just hold it for me for the moment. And then I'm going to put the baggage label on. And you can see that with the baggage label, I have stamped a fragile on it, and I put an eyelet in it, and on the back it says this side of the card is for an address. So I'm going to actually hang that over the edge of the page a little bit. So let's put quite a bit of art glitter glue on this because it's got to grab to packaging. I actually really enjoy creating stories and scenarios or compositions out of rubbish, or out of things that we would normally discard. That you think, oh, what are we going to do with that? Most of the time it goes into the bin. Yes, that'll be good. That'll just hang over. And then we have our man of the hour. He looks pretty good there. And you can see that I've just inked up the printable. I just printed this out of Collage soup, and then I've inked it up and aged it a little bit. Now I think before I glue that bit down, I might use a little bit of this offcut of washi. And that'll just bring a little bit of red down into this corner. We can glue that on, but I want to work out where to put this. Now this one here is a label from Margaret. I'm sorry, I'm not sure which printable it is, but it is a label from Margaret. And I've just stuck on there a sentiment that is out of the Tim Holtz Snarky, and it says, I may be wrong, but I doubt it. And he looks like a person that I don't think he would think he's wrong very often. So I kind of thought that that was a good sentiment for him. So I'm just pulling out Tony's from Crafty by Tony, her identification card stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp that, and we'll glue that on. I'm going to put a lot of glue on this. That looks good. And then I have another label here. So I just got it out of my stash. I stamped it a while ago actually. And it's our boarding pass. And I wanted to carry the red over down into this corner. Okay, there he is. Now I can't give him a name, even though his name says George Hathbert, I think it is. I don't think that's what his name is. You can see that I've also put on a few eyelets, and I'll stick that now onto the page out of the journal. Okay, I'm happy with that. I think it needs a few white splatters, but we'll do that at the end because I've got another one to do. So let's set this to the side and I'll get out the next one. Okay, here's our next one. I have this lovely lady, and it's an original out of a 1970s Women's Day magazine here in Australia, and it was an advertisement for this cotton blouse. And I have created a story around this lady, and I think she looks like a Dorothy to me. So we're going to go with Dorothy. Now, I have put her on some deli paper, that white delicatessen paper, and just inked it up. And you can see that I've also put on a Twinings tea bag label as well onto there, because the story will unravel with why that's on there. I also have some fabric because I thought it would be good to have a little bit of fabric on there. So I've got some mesh fabric that I've just cut down, and it's kind of going to be her backdrop for her to sit on. I've stamped a little bit of brown paper, and I made a tab out of some brown packaging. I just put some brown packaging onto some cardstock scrap and punched out a tab and have stamped it. I have one of those little jump ring embellishments that I make. I also have a label. This label comes from a printable. I think it's Bob's Your Uncle from Seven Plaza. And then I've put on a sentiment out of Small Talk that says, "What seems ordinary is often extraordinary," because all of this packaging is ordinary. But we're going to try and make something extraordinary. But also, this lady here, a cotton blouse. You would think a cotton blouse is fairly ordinary piece of clothing, but she looks extraordinary to me. So that's why I pulled out that sentiment. And I have a tape measure here, and that's out of one of Margaret's printables as well. I think it was the Mega Bumper Mega Pack. But what I want to show you, what I've made, is I've made my own wallpaper out of packaging. And I've got quite a few that I made. So I have some lemons, I have birds, flowers, and it's fabulous. Look at it. It's a little bit like vinyl wallpaper. That's what it feels like to me. And how I made this was I used 3 items. I used some packaging. So here we've got brown paper packaging off of some products from my work. And then we have the deli paper here from the delicatessen. So that's one product, some sort of packaging. And it doesn't need to be overly thick. And then some of you will have already guessed it. I used serviettes. So that's the second product. I used all different types of serviettes, and you can see here I have a lovely flower here. I'm not sure what sort it is. No idea. But it's serviette. And then the third product I used was Mod Podge. You can hear how lovely it is. It really is like vinyl wallpaper to me. It feels a little bit like that. So I'll pop those to the side and tell you how I made it. I mean, it's pretty simple. Okay, so how I made it was I just put some Mod Podge onto the surface of the packaging first. And I didn't put a massive, quantity, just normal, just a normal layer, just good covering so that there were no possibility of any empty spots or bits that didn't stick. Then I laid down some serviette, and then once the serviette was down, I laid it out flat. I pushed it out flat with my fingers and with the paintbrush. And then I put another coat of Mod Podge over the top of it, and I painted it thoroughly with Mod Podge. And then I let it dry. Once it was dry, it went like vinyl. And it does tear. You can see that I've torn it here, but it doesn't tear easily. And then you can see that on this one I have stamped. So I used some archival ink and I stamped onto it so that it was permanent, because the Mod Podge puts a bit of a coating on the surface. So you need to use a permanent kind of ink onto it. And that's how I made my wallpaper. So that's fun. The other thing that I made was I made some flowers out of the packaging. So if you'd like to see how I make this and I make the flowers, leave a comment below and I'll do a video of it. They're pretty easy to make and they look pretty cute. So there's a flower and some faux wallpaper. So let's stick this down. I'm going to put our packaging down. I've got some ribbed packaging. I'm going to glue that down first, I think. And then I've got our tape measure that I'm going to tuck under here. And then I've got our lady. So I'm going to put her on somewhere. Just work out where I'm going to put her. Okay, so let's glue this down and I'll tell you the story about Dorothy. Now, Dorothy worked for a company that is a factory for manufacturing cotton clothing. And she didn't actually work in the factory, she worked in the office. So she worked for one of the bosses and she was their secretary, or we'd call them a PA now. So that's what she did, and hence the Twinings tea bag, because one of the things that she had to always do was get cups of tea and coffee for all the executives. So she was working as the secretary and getting the cups of tea and coffee and doing all the typing and memos and writing, typing up the letters and all that sort of thing, and the invoices and so on. Well, one of the big bosses was there one day, and they'd just produced a whole lot of new clothing. And this new blouse, cotton blouse, was one of the items of clothing that had just been produced. They asked her, they had all of the stock in the boardroom, and she brought in tea and coffee and the biscuits for the meeting. And they asked her what she thought of some of the new clothes. And they wanted her opinion. They said, oh, well, we're not sure about it. What about you try it on? So she said, oh, yes, I could. She said, but how much is it? Well, it was 8.5D. Whatever the D is, I'm not sure what currency that is. If anyone knows, put it in the comments below. They said to her that they thought that it would look nice and could she try it on to see whether it was going to be a good seller or not, ultimately. So let's figure out our placement here. We might stick that onto the back. So she tried it on And then she came in and showed them, and they all thought it was fabulous and said, that looks amazing. We're going to produce them, and we want you to be our model because she looks so great in it. And look how she is fabulous, isn't she? Her hair styled nicely, her eyebrows are trimmed, she's got a little bit of lipstick on, she's very schmick. And so then they said to her, it looks so nice on you, we'd like you to be the model for the company. So Dorothy, in a very short period of time, went from being the secretary to becoming, move that down a bit, to being the company's model, which she was thrilled about because then she started going to photo shoots, getting free clothes because she was trying everything on and modelling them, and they're like, well, you may as well keep it. All right, let's do the same trick again with this. If you can hear some noises outside, it's because the grandchildren have come outside to play with my son-in-law. And I was videoing, I thought I'll try and get that done before they come out to play. But it's a public holiday here today, so they've come out a little bit earlier. But I don't want to stop them from playing. So back to Dorothy. Dorothy, she overnight became a model for the company. Well, then she was modeling all these, ordinary kinds of clothes, because that's what the saying says. Ordinary can become extraordinary. A little bit extra for that material to stick. So she became a overnight success as a model, and she ended up getting an international job as a model, all because she went and tried on an ordinary t-shirt and looked so fabulous in it. Extraordinary. That's what it is. It's extraordinary. Actually, let's move that down just a tad. Just trim this off. But I'm going to leave that little bit of overhang so I can staple or glue this on. I think I'll glue it on, actually. So there's our story about Dorothy. So now, in the 70s, she's become a well-known model for an ordinary clothing company, just everyday clothing company, and then got modelling jobs to do big names. And we'll stick our flower on. Okay, let's put a little bit of white splatter on both of these. I'm just going to cover up her face because we don't want any splatter on her. And I'm using some Liquitex acrylic ink. And we'll do the same to our man here. Put a little bit of white splatter on him. So here we go. Here's our two heroes. We've got George here. He's an undercover agent of some sort. We don't know what. It's got confidential information. It's important. Official business is stamped on it. And he's got a Santa Fe Co. train baggage label and a boarding pass. And then we've got some other secret documents in the background here that we can't read because some of it's in another language. and it says, "I may be wrong, but I doubt it." So there we go. That's George. We'll just pop him into the middle at the moment. Here we go. And when we turn the page, that's good, isn't it? We can see that the tab's working. Lovely. And then let's flip to the back. And we'll put Dorothy after our butterflies. She can go in there. That tab's working nicely too. There we go. There's our 2 page clusters out of scrap packaging and things that we would normally throw away, and a few other bits and pieces, you know, a few images, a little bit of ephemera, and some serviettes. So I'm happy with how they turned out. And let's have a look at George again. There they are. There's George and Dorothy. Beautiful. The packaging journal's starting to get a few stories happening, isn't it? That's great. So if you'd like to see how I made this faux wallpaper and these little flowers out of packaging and serviettes, leave a comment below. I'll probably do a video of it coming up. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. That would be wonderful. And subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all very soon with another project. Thanks again, everybody. Bye for now.